How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
You know, it's a great looking group. Where'd Craig go? I get up and he leaves. That's all right, he's around here somewhere. I always hear Craig, like hearing Craig, love hearing Craig, love his teaching. I've done a few talks on the Constitution myself. There are 7 articles and 27 amendments in the Constitution. Craig was talking about the biblical basis of our founding documents, the biblical basis of the Constitution. Do you know that Jesus Christ himself is actually mentioned in the Constitution? At Article 7, it talks about in the year of our Lord. And that our Lord is not Muhammad, and it's not Anthony Fauci. So we need to be teaching our kids a little bit more about the Constitution and teach them the battle cry of the American Revolution, no king but Jesus. We need to teach them that. Some other things we need to teach them. One thing that I tried to teach my kid was this. You know, friends don't let friends vote Democrat. Anybody try that one? I've spoken to a few Republican groups, and it's really out of my character to start by quoting a Democrat. So it would have to be a good Democrat, like, what was the guy's name you put up a minute ago, Craig? The congressman? Sid, or maybe Sam Nunn, or you don't find too many of them anymore, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to try to start by quoting Bobby Kennedy Jr. just from a couple of days ago. Let me see if I can get it right. Nobody in the history of the planet has ever complied their way out of totalitarian control. Right. When you comply, you become weaker. The hill that you will die on is the hill that you stand on right now. We have to realize, as President Reagan said, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? Now's the time. I wanted to talk a little bit about some things we need to understand. A lot of folks think that, you know, we're on the verge of communism. And I can see why people would think that. We have Democrats that think like communists and act like communists. But actually, the fact of the matter is that we are on the verge of, in fact, we are at the door of fascism. Okay? Benito Mussolini himself said that corporatism is the cornerstone of a fascist nation. What I mean by corporatism, what I mean is this, is the end result, whether it's communist or fascist, is the destruction of individual liberty and the death of the United States Constitution. But corporatism is when government begins to use filthy, nasty, and greedy and evil corporations to carry out its dirty work. We are there now. We begin to see it to a large degree leading up to the 2020 election. And by the way, some of you may or may not know, but I worked with Sidney Powell on her election team, and I've seen the inside of what happened. The election was stolen. The election was involved cheating, and I'm not going to go off on a tangent. I could come back and talk to you about that later. But we began to see it largely, first and foremost, with these big social media giants and their rabid attack against the First Amendment. And whose money were they bidding? Whose agenda were they pushing? Who are they attempting to empower by doing fact checks? By deplatforming a president of the United States? You see, what the government could not directly do, Twitter did and is continuing to do, and so is Facebook, by the destruction of First Amendment rights. And they get away with it because they're corporations, okay? Remember, Mussolini himself, corporatism is the cornerstone of fascism. Benito Mussolini. And think about this. We now are beginning to see it in this whole vaccine battle that we're in. Now, as Patrick mentioned, I'm one of 3 attorneys here. We're all involved in some federal litigation right now in South Carolina. I'm licensed in North and South Carolina. And Ed's going to come up. He's a great constitutional lawyer and talk to you about some Supreme Court cases in a moment. I want you to understand two things that are going on with these vaccine battles right now. You may have heard that there have been a few victories in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court just last week struck down the OSHA mandate, and rightly so, by a vote of 6-3. It should have been 9-0. It was 6-3. That was based on Biden's Executive Order 14043, in which you just heard him say what he was going to do in that great video a moment ago. And so the Supreme Court struck that down. Closely related to that, a federal judge in Texas named Jeff Brown struck down another mandate which would have put vaccines on federal employees. In contradicting itself, the Supreme Court voted 5-4 to uphold the illegal mandate against healthcare workers. These are problems with the Equal Protection Clause because these citizens are not being treated equally by the law. There are all kinds of constitutional problems with this. But what I want you to understand is this. And by the way, the Navy SEALs won a battle not long ago in which, God bless the U.S. Navy and Navy SEALs, in which they argued that their religious convictions should exempt them from vaccination. But what we're seeing in these cases with these wins is that these are mandates coming directly down from the executive branch of the government to either employees or private citizens. Totally unconstitutional. And the Supreme Court, for it, on the one hand, to strike one mandate and allow the other one to stand, shows that we do not have a full and dependable conservative majority in the United States Supreme Court, including the Chief Justice, and it looks like Kavanaugh ways back and forth, and a couple other ones in the election stuff as well.
You were right.
But they were all small victories involving governmental mandates. The battle that we're fighting, to a large degree, though, is that we are attacking large private companies, corporatism, attempting to enforce governmental policy against citizens. It's fascist. And it is more difficult to attack a corporation. Now listen, we as Republicans and conservatives, we generally want to deregulate. We generally, I run a small business. I don't want somebody telling me what I got to do. It cuts into I don't have any profit, I was going to say, but it cuts into my opportunity to make profit. Okay? But on the other hand, we have to understand, and some have alluded to this also, that the purpose of government is to protect us, and to protect us to ensure that our individual liberties are not impinged upon. And that we are not, listen, a law is passed to prohibit murder, to prohibit stealing, to prohibit all types of things that are morally wrong. And when you are forced to put something in your body against your choice that could be harmful, that is morally wrong. Yes. And government must step in to stop that. Yes. I can tell you, in the state of South Carolina, just to give you an example, that state is totally controlled by Republicans. In April, the South Carolina Senate passed a bill, and that bill would have prohibited and would prohibit the imposition of COVID-19 vaccinations by private employers. That bill passed. The South Carolina House of Representatives went on vacation. A bill passed by the Senate is not the law. Step in the right direction is not the law. In the meantime, I represent 90 plaintiffs against a large employer down at the Savannah River plant, Savannah River Nuclear Solutions, who were ordered to take a vaccine or be fired. Most of those folks have claimed religious exemptions, which were blanketly denied by this employer. And by the way, even though the OSHA mandate has now been withdrawn by OSHA, thanks to the victory that we did get in the Supreme Court, OSHA is promising to bring it back in another form. But even though that mandate has been passed, we still see private employers that continue to push this garbage on citizens. So understand, there are two categories here. There's the governmental category, and there's the private category where this fascism is being pushed on people. Fast forward to December 9th in South Carolina. The Senate that passed this bill sitting there. The South Carolina House goes into a special session and passes a bill which does not ban these mandates altogether, so it's watered down from what the Senate had done, but it does provide absolute exemption for anyone who wants to claim a religious exemption or a medical exemption. No questions asked. That bill got passed, but the bills have not been consolidated. They've not been signed by the governor. They're sitting there as Republican window dressing without getting the job done. And so we have to push Republicans to get the job done. The danger imposed by these vaccines, we haven't even begun to see it yet. Epoch Times reported just last week a 40% increase in non-COVID deaths from 2020 to 2021. My question is, what is the common denominator? Yesterday we discovered that in the United States military, or this week, three times the cancer rate over last year. Vaccine mandates have been imposed upon the military. What is the common denominator? We know the common denominator. I put this in my lawsuit that we filed, which is now sitting before the Fourth Circuit, okay? But the VAERS, the CDC's VAERS system, when they wanted to use VAERS in the right way, they were shutting down all types of vax programs with numbers that are minuscule compared to what we're seeing now. Now, from January into October of last year, we saw more deaths reported associated with these COVID vaccines in a 10-month period than from all other vaccines combined over a 30-year period before that. And these fools want to tell us just look the other way, put the blinders over your eyes, do what government tells you to do, and comply. And they expect us to ignore it. It's time to take this data and get in the face of our legislators. Now, not later, now. Our security is threatened. Our personal safety is threatened. Our constitutional liberties are threatened. If we don't get up and get into the face of these legislatures and make life uncomfortable, we're going in the wrong direction.
Yep.
I'm going to turn this over to some more eloquent speakers. But I love you all. We're going to be on a panel. We're going to take some questions later. Thank you, and God bless.